Hi, and welcome back to this week's Parsha Shir on Sefirat Gedalyahu. It's been quite a long time since we've engaged in this particular Shir from before Pesach until now, and so it's wonderful to be back and to re-establish this Shir and to be able to gain insight from the Or Gedalyahu into the weekly Torah portion. This week, I would actually like to share something with you from the end of his commentary on Parshas Tazria Mitzorah, which is actually about Sefirat Haomer. The Or Gedalyahu connects it back to everything he had said about Tazria Mitzorah and creates a connection, a thematic connection. We won't have time to go into the full breadth of what he discusses in Tazria Mitzorah, but I would like to share his insight into Sefirat Haomer, which is of course very relevant and timely to the period we find ourselves in right now. As he says in his opening, Omdim anu achshav b'yemei hasfira. He says, we now find ourselves in most years, Parshas Tazria Mitzorah is in the middle of Sefirat Haomer. Hinei mevuar batorah. If you think about this time period and the way the Torah describes at least the initial counting of Sefirat Haomer, Desofrin mimacharas hashabbos. We start counting mimacharas hashabbos. We start counting from the day after Shabbos, which of course is a famous debate between the Tzdukim and the Prushim. Tzdukim, who read the Torah literally, say mimacharas hashabbos means the first Shabbos during Pesach. From the day after that, we start to count Sefirat Haomer. We of course have a Torah shel Be'al Peh. We have an oral Torah which explains that Shabbos doesn't mean literally Shabbos, but the Shabbos means actually the first day of Pesach. We start counting from the second day of Pesach, from after the holiday of Pesach, which begins that very first day of the 15th of Nisan. He says, "Umuvur mized the Yom Rishon shel Pesach shayach libechinas Shabbos." From the fact that the Torah says Mimachras HaShabbos in reference to the first day of Pesach, we have to learn that there is some intrinsic connection between the nature of Shabbos and the nature of the first day of Pesach, and in terms of the connection to Sefirat Haomer. So very nice, beautifully laid out. The question now is, what is that connection between Shabbos, first day of Pesach, and this period of Sefirat Haomer? And the Or Gedalyahu begins to explain. Yadua b'nei Yisrael b'yosam b'Mitzrayim mishubadim leparo ba'avoda kasha mefareches haguf. We know very well from the Psukim in Parshas Bo, Psukim even before Parshas Bo, Shmos, Va'era, that the Jewish people were deeply enslaved to Paro in Egypt with back-breaking labor that was difficult for the body. And because of the impatience that we felt, the lack of spirit that we fell lower and lower, not just physically, but spiritually, into what we know as the Memtet Sharei Tuma, the 49 levels of Tuma, which perhaps we'll get back to in the end. And they needed great help and great assistance to raise themselves up from the depths of spiritual depravity in Egypt, from the Memtet Sharei Tuma, to be able to raise themselves up and become really the Bnei Israel, to become the children of Israel, to become a nation, to become connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to receive the Torah. We talked about this many times, the fact that they needed help. Even in Or Gedalyahu, we talked about way back in Parshas Bo, I believe, the concept of chipazon, of taking them out quickly from Egypt, because if they had been there any longer, they would have sunk to the last level of Tuma, wouldn't be able to be retrieved anymore, but they preserved their identity up to this point, and God had to help them to take them out sooner. God helps them to raise them up. And to bring them closer to His service, to the Torah, to mitzvahs. This was so important for God to raise them up, that God, Kiviyachol, comes on His own into the depths of Egypt to be able to save the Jewish people. As we say in the Haggadah, Ani v'lo malach, Ani v'lo saraf, God comes Himself, not an angel, not a fiery angel, nothing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvodo v'atzmo, He Himself comes to save us. Lakachas lo goy mikerev goy, ba'otot moftim, b'yada chazaka, b'zroa netuya, going to take one nation out of the midst of another with great signs and great wonders, as we say in the Haggadah. V'al yadei skalu zeh, because of this great revelation, God comes and reveals Himself to the Jewish people in the depths of Egypt, the depths of their spiritual destruction in the 49th level of Tumah. God reveals Himself. A revelation of God's presence, a very powerful thing. Because of that revelation, that Hiskalus, Nisoraru b'nei Yisrael, they were revived. They were aroused in a certain powerful way, and therefore they were able to follow God. Where they wouldn't have on their own been able to follow God, but because of that little oomph, that little boost that God gives them, they're able to then follow further in the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, became closer to God, as we do say in the Haggadah, now, in the midst of saving us from Egypt, God made us closer to His avodah. God was the catalyst that enabled us to then grow further and further on our own and eventually become closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even before we go any further into the connection between Pesach and Shabbos and Sefirat Haomer, as we go further in this story and learn what the Gilui was, what the revelation was, there's a beautiful point embedded here in the words of the Gedalyahu itself. Normally believe, like the Gemara in Megillah says, that when a person is engaged on a certain direction, a certain pathway, that's where HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps him or her to go. They're going on a good path, God fosters that, God allows you to continue on that good path, and snowball effect allows you to become greater and greater and greater. If you're going down a negative path, you've already chosen and carved out that way, then unfortunately God lets you continue along that path until you decide to change it. But we assume that you are the one who has to choose the path. In this particular circumstance, what the Gedalyahu is saying is something very powerful, and that's part of the Nes Galui, the revealed miracle against the laws of nature that is part of the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is that unlike in normal circumstance where a person is arusa dilatata, as we've talked about many times in this year, when there's arousal from below, when we choose our path, of course God can then come and support that path. However, here it's not isarusa dilatata, it's not us deciding our path, us deciding to be saved, us deciding to leave Mitzrayim, us deciding to raise ourselves up from the Memtet Sharei Tuma. No, in this case it's Hashem Himself, miraculously deciding to reverse the laws of nature and have an isarusa dila'ela, an arousal from above, a change instituted and implemented by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to turn our direction. And once He turned our direction, of course, then we continue to go in that direction. We continue to be able to move in that direction. I think it's a powerful notion, first of all, about God and protecting us and the miracles of Egypt and Pesach, but in the human realm, it's also an important message that sometimes we get stuck in a rut. And it's okay that sometimes we need something from the outside, something external to us, whether a person or an event or a saying or a book or a teaching, something from outside of us to give us a little kick and push us out of the rut and into the right direction, into the right lane, so that we can have enough energy to then continue to go down that lane further. But we don't always have the energy to be able to push ourselves and get ourselves on track. But if we have a little help, a catalyst, a push, a shove, an aid, an assistance of some sort, then we can get on the right track. Once you're on the right track, it becomes easier to follow it down the road. Okay. Before telling us what the Gilui was, what the real revelation was that sparked the Jewish people to then grow towards God, there's a little caveat that the Gedalyahu shares with us about the nature of the Gilui, about the nature of the Hiskalos, the nature of the revelation. He says, B'yetzias Mitzrayim haya Gilui mikadmono shel olam. There was a revelation implanted in Sinai that came already from way, way, way back in the creation of the world. But this revelation, this great burst of spiritual energy, was not able to take hold right away in the Jewish people. Because the revelation came from above, it came from God. Matana min hashamayim, a gift from heaven. Velo hayu re'uyim legilui zeh b'schus atzmam, but the Jewish people themselves weren't worthy of it. They weren't ready for it. They weren't prepared for it. V'lachein lo nase lahem lekinyan. They couldn't acquire it fully because they weren't ready for it. It came, it was implanted with them, it was embedded with them, but they couldn't fully take hold of it. They couldn't fully appreciate it. They couldn't fully embrace it. They couldn't fully grow into it and be raised by it because they weren't ready. It's also an important yesod, also an important lesson, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always mashpia shefa. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always placing blessing down into the world. We just have to be the right kli kibul. We have to be the right receptacle, the right vessel to be able to receive it. That great revelation from God. And the Jewish people in that moment weren't ready to receive it. So they kind of received it in a hidden way. It was implanted within them. It was there all along, but they weren't yet ready to let it come to fruition within themselves. Bechina zo, he says, this type of revelation, a gift from God that's given, whether we're ready for it or not, he bechinas Shabbos. That's exactly the type of gift that Shabbos is. Shekam Shabbos hi matana. The Gemara in Shabbos says, Matana tova yeshli bebeis kenazi v'Shabbos shema. The Gemara in Shabbos refers to Shabbos as a gift which God gives from His storehouse to the Jewish people. Shabbos hi matana milamala k'mo shechosmin mekadosh Shabbos. Shabbos is a gift that's purely from above. Whether we like it or not, whether we accept it or not, whether we establish or not, Shabbos comes once a week, over and over and over from the time of creation and going forward. Unlike, by contrast, the Gemara in Beitza points out, Yantif is not like that. Yantif is isarusa de latata. Yantif is something we establish. The Beis Din establishes the calendar and sets the date of a Yantif. So we end the bracha, as Rabbi Soloveitchik beautifully pointed out, we end the bracha of Yantif in the Amidah, Mekadesh Yisrael v'Hazmanim. God who sanctifies the Jewish people, who in turn sanctify the times, the Moadim, the holidays, as opposed to the bracha that ends the section of the Amidah for Shabbos, which is just Mekadesh HaShabbos. God is the one who sanctifies Shabbos. We have nothing to do with it. It's totally from above. That's the type of revelation that occurred to us on the first day of Pesach in Mitzrayim. That's why the first day of Pesach in the Torah is referred to as Shabbos, and we count Sefirat Haomer after that day, after Shabbos, quote unquote, meaning after the first day of Pesach, which is known as Shabbos, because on that first day of Pesach we received the revelation from God, just like Shabbos is a gift from God that's implanted within us, whether we like it or not, or are prepared or not. But the reality was that on that first day we received this great revelation that we weren't ready for as a people. And therefore, it was implanted within us, but not yet fully revealed. V'kevan, he says, and because we weren't ready to receive it, lo nikba bekerev b'nei Yisrael. This gilui, this revelation was not really taking hold within us. Therefore, haya nitzrach avoda gedola mitzidam likboas hagilu benafsham. We had to do a tremendous amount of work on ourselves, on our physical selves, to be able to eventually allow that ha'ara, that great light of revelation that was implanted within us to come to the fore, to be fully revealed within us and appreciated within us. Zehu inyan Sefirat Haomer. That's the concept of Yemei HaSfira, the days of counting between Pesach and Shavuos. Avodas ha'adam hu l'tayr l'zakech es gufo. It's our job during this period of time to purify our bodies, to correct our bodies, to elevate our bodies. Sheba avoda zo yikba benafsho, because by doing so, we will instill within our soul ha'aras hagilui, the great revelation, Bechinas Kedem Sheniskala B'Yom Echad DePesach, the revelation revealed to us on that first day of Pesach, which is, it's just ready to burst forth, but it can't come out because we don't have the right vehicle to allow it out. We don't have the right power of absorption for that great light. But if we perfect our bodies, if we perfect ourselves in that way, we will allow that light to continue to emerge. Gedalyahu goes on to say that really every time period in the Jewish calendar, when we think about it, it's not just that there was a revelation way back when. In the time of Pesach, at this time of year, when the Jewish people allowed themselves during the days of Sefirat Haomer to grow as people, so that the revelation implanted within them on Pesach could eventually come out on Shavuos with Matan Torah and come to its full fruition at Matan Torah. It didn't just happen then. In that time, he says, there was like an imprint placed upon the world of the ease of perfection, of perfecting the body. At that time, there was a spiritual revelation implanted within the world, so that every year when you come back to that time period, you can tap back in to that which happened thousands and thousands of years ago. Ha'ara shel kol moed moed misorel b'chol shana v'shana. The great revelation of every yontif, of every season, of every time, becomes revealed again and again, year after year. We can tap into that same revelation that occurred then. V'ha'avoda shel yamim elu shebein Pesach l'Shavuos hi avoda gedola. This avoda that we have before us during this time period of Sefirat Haomer is an incredible one. But an incredible one we don't have to do on our own, because God already implanted during this time period of the year the power for us to do that. And what that avoda is to perfect the body in a way that will allow our true spiritual nature to emerge in its fullest form. And once it emerges into its fullest form, that guf, that body which was perfected, becomes imbued with the light and the spirit that HaKadosh Baruch Hu placed within us, so that body and soul become one. And when body and soul become one, we elevate ourselves. We elevate ourselves from the 49th level of Tumah all the way to the level, and we're so close to Hashem that we're prepared to receive the true light of His Torah, not only implanted secretly within us, but fully revealed as well. Shabbat Shalom.